In this episode, we continue to explore reports of strange activity which has transpired within the boundaries of a rural heritage site located within Britain's West Midlands region. We will begin by examining an account that pertains to one of the area's most bizarre and haunting residents, the Pig-Man of Cannock Chase. Due to its remote and secluded location, Cannock Chase has long served as a haven for individuals in search of solitude and respite from the busyness of everyday life. For the officers of the Staffordshire Police Constabulary, the sprawling rural area has always produced a steady stream of crime reports to investigate. In October of 2006, authorities received a call about a disruptive crowd on the outskirts of the chase. The gathering included intoxicated individuals who were causing a disturbance for nearby residents. Response officers were dispatched to address the situation, and upon arriving, they discovered several cars parked along the road. The officers proceeded through the adjacent tree line and stumbled upon a camp where the owners of the vehicles were situated. Having moved this group on, the officers then resumed their evening patrol, only to later receive a report that a distressed young man had attended a local station. It would transpire that this youth had been one of the group recently encountered by the police, but had decided to return to his campsite as he had no desire to return home. Sometime in the early hours, he awoke unexpectedly, and before attempting to go back to sleep, he decided to step outside for a cigarette. Upon emerging from his tent, the teenager heard a rustling sound in the undergrowth about 200 meters away from where he had pitched. Expecting the cause of this disturbance to be one of the many deer he had seen in the area, he continued to smoke his cigarette, only to then see a pale creature emerge from beyond the bushes. It was moving on all fours, with its face pressed close to the ground, as if doggedly searching for something. Believing that this must be a sniffer dog belonging to the police or a local warden, the man began to back away, inadvertently disturbing the ground beneath him. Almost immediately, the creature reared up, standing tall on its hind legs and adopting a confrontational posture. With growing horror, the witness realized that he was looking at a gigantic figure, almost 8 feet tall, with a humanoid body and a grossly oversized and distended face. Where its nose should have been, there was instead a blunt pig-like snout, which sat atop a large gaping mouth, through which the creature now began to howl and scream. At the first sign of this shrieking and squealing monster moving towards him, the youth had immediately turned and run, leaving his tent and car behind. Fleeing as fast as he could to the main road, he had flagged down a passing motorist, begging to be taken to the nearest police station. The description of the creature encountered by the young man is remarkably similar to that provided by a pair of local residents in an incident which took place in October of 1993. On that occasion, the couple, named John and Anne, had been out walking in the vicinity of Castle Ring when they became aware of a noise in the nearby woodland. Stopping to listen, they thought it was likely another couple indulging in a romantic encounter away from prying eyes. Deciding that it was time to go home, they returned to their car, which was parked a short distance away from where they heard the sound. But as John was putting the vehicle into reverse to leave, his wife suddenly gripped hold of his arm, her other hand pointing out through their windscreen. Several meters away, a figure had emerged from the tree line and was standing silently regarding the couple as they sat in their car. At first glance, this looked like any other adult male, dressed in a dark top and matching trousers. But instead of a normal face, it had a repulsive and horrifying blend of human and porcine features. It possessed dark, piercing eyes which appeared far smaller than normal, and a totally flat snout, framed by a pair of flat drooping ears, which hung low either side of the head. John was sitting open-mouthed, staring at what he thought looked like tusks at the side of the creature's broad mouth, when it suddenly took a step towards them. The creature then raised a hand and emitted a shrill scream. John immediately changed gear and drove away from the car park as fast as he could. Stories relating to this supposed Pig-Man, who is rumoured to stalk the woods in and around Cannock Chase, have been in circulation since the late 1960s. Over time, this legend has been linked to another piece of local lore, one that relates to a secret military installation allegedly hidden away within the reserve. The Pie Green communications mast lies a mile south of the German military cemetery, one of 14 such installations to have been constructed at the height of the Cold War. A reinforced concrete tower, built as part of a backup communications network in the event of a Soviet attack, it stands at nearly 100 meters tall. But rumours persist that during its construction in 1963, the opportunity was also taken by the military to hide a secretive facility beneath the ground. It was here that the Pig-Man was said to have been birthed, the result of a rudimentary military experiment involving gene splicing and cross-species husbandry. Over the years, a number of alleged whistleblowers have come forward with stories of how the creature came to roam the woods around the tower. Some have stated that at the end of the experimental program in question, the hybrid managed to escape from captivity, with no real will or desire shown by the authorities to recapture it. Others believe it may have been intentionally freed by its creators in order to keep people away from the facility. Regardless, having been witnessed moving across the region for roughly a 70-year period, it remains to be seen how much life this creature has left to live. In addition to the Pig-Man, it would appear that Cannock Chase may be home to an elusive Dog-Man, with stories of a werewolf lurking in the woods being equally prevalent. The most recent of such sightings took place on the nearby M6 motorway during the summer of 2006. One evening in June of that year, Highways agency staff were dispatched to a multi-vehicle collision which had taken place in the vicinity of Junction 10A. Upon their arrival, the Highways officers found a number of damaged vehicles which had thankfully already been moved off the motorway by their owners. Fortunately, nobody involved had sustained serious injury, but when the officers attempted to determine the cause of the accident, several of the drivers became somewhat evasive. It was only when police officers attended the scene that an account of what had transpired was obtained, one that would raise eyebrows when it was later transcribed. The driver of the first vehicle to be hit, a middle-aged woman driving home from work, claimed to have braked sharply to avoid a person crossing the carriageway ahead of her. But when asked to describe the pedestrian, she had stated that she could not, as it had not been wearing any clothes, and had been completely covered in a layer of hair or fur. Despite repeated questioning, she maintained that the figure had resembled a wolf or dog, but had been hurrying across the busy road on 2 legs as opposed to 4. Bizarrely still, a passenger in the car which had subsequently collided with hers agreed with the account, stating that they had also seen a dog-like figure fleeing the ensuing collision. A search of the ground either side of the motorway did not reveal any trace of this mysterious entity, be it human or otherwise. The incident on the M6 is only one of a larger number of sightings of what resembles a dogman, occasionally emerging from the woods to cross the roads of Cannock Chase. Back in February of 1995, Jackie Horton had been driving from Cannock to Rugeley along the A460 road, which cuts right through the heart of the reserve. It was early morning, and as there were no streetlights on this long stretch of road, Horton engaged her high beams. Seemingly out of nowhere, a large figure suddenly stepped out from the side of the road ahead of her vehicle, lumbering slowly into the centre of the carriageway. With her reactions dulled by fatigue, Horton didn't have time to swerve, and closed her eyes in anticipation of the coming collision. When she then opened them again, the car had travelled directly past the figure, which appeared to have stepped back at the last moment. Applying her brakes, she looked in the car's rearview mirror at an unnatural creature, which remained standing in the middle of the road, staring right back at her. Illuminated by the red glow emanating from her brake lights, she could make out the features of a tall and muscular figure, covered from head to toe in dark fur. Its eyes were a piercing red, reflecting back at her out of the darkness, and the lower half of its face ended in a blunt canine snout which was open to expose a row of sharp teeth. Then the creature had turned on its heel and sprinted off into the bush, moving at a speed well in excess of anything any human would be capable of. The killing and mutilation of small animals and cattle in the area has often been linked to this entity, despite such events being common to most rural areas. With a combination of natural tunnels and industrial mine shafts running beneath the region, some theorise that a number of such creatures may have made their home beneath the chase, emerging only during the darkest hours to hunt, and returning to their lairs as the first rays of sun crest the horizon. In addition to the ghost of a black-eyed girl, whose antics have now been recounted to audiences around the globe, Cannock Chase hosts several other infamous female ghosts. One of these is reportedly a woman dressed all in white, who haunts the land that lies in and around Springslade Lodge, situated not far from Pye Green Tower. Dubbed the Lady of the Chase, this spirit manifests in front of both drivers and walkers, somehow possessing the power to paralyse them exactly where they stand. She then proceeds to stare into their eyes for several minutes, as if analysing everything about them, before then disappearing as quickly as she appeared. Another famous ghost linked to the area dwells within the confines of the nearby Shugborough estate, and is believed to be the spirit of one of the previous owners. Lady Harriet Hamilton was the wife of the second Earl of Lichfield, and resided in Shugborough Hall during the second half of the 19th century. Since her death in 1913, visitors to the hall have reported hearing ghostly footsteps and the rustling of a heavy silken dress along the main corridors of the building. A smoky figure has also been witnessed to pass directly through closed doors from one room into another by some guests, and it would appear that not all of the Chase's spectral inhabitants are confined to their home, with at least one possessing the ability to travel beyond its boundaries. During the 1990s, a man named Nigel Barrett was travelling through Cannock Chase en route to the town of Wandon. It had been a damp and miserable day, and as he was nearing the outskirts of the town, he caught sight of a young woman walking along the road just ahead of him. He wondered if she might be a hitchhiker, but when she made no effort to flag him down, Nigel increased his speed and manoeuvred his car to pass her by. As he did so, he suddenly cried out and slammed his foot hard on the brakes when he realised that her face was a mass of featureless flesh. At the exact same moment, the woman instantly vanished, leaving Nigel sitting at the wheel of his car in shock. He told himself that it must have been the effects of his long journey home, or a trick of the evening mist and murk, before continuing with his journey. But in the coming days, strange events began to take place around the home he shared with his wife. His dogs, who had resided with the couple at the property for years, became sullen and withdrawn, refusing to remain in the same room as their master. His wife complained that she had felt an invisible hand touching her hair, or running itself across her exposed forearms when she was alone in the house. Several nights later, she woke Nigel with her screams, claiming she had opened her eyes to see a woman hovering directly above him, with a hazy patch of nothingness where her face should have been. Her lifeless arms had been reaching down as if to take hold of her sleeping husband and remove him from their bed. It remains something of a mystery as to why this one particular area of the West Midlands possesses such a wide and varied catalogue of mysterious occurrences. It has often been compared to the likes of Skinwalker Ranch or the Bridgewater Triangle in the USA for its high strangeness. Some would argue that its sprawling and remote nature has allowed some species to evolve over time, free from human interference, only being glimpsed during the very late or very early hours, whilst the rest of the world sleeps. For others, the isolated region has acted as a magnet for extraterrestrial or malign entities, who are able to move around beyond the reach of human surveillance. And then there are those who believe that sites such as Castle Ring and the German military cemetery have directly contributed towards the growth of supernatural phenomena, the souls of so many who have been laid there having become restless and unable to find peace. Regardless, inexplicable activity on Cannock Chase seems to show no sign of abating nor diminishing. If anything, and perhaps unfortunately for the local population, it only seems to be increasing, both in terms of frequency and intensity. The question is, why? What may be coming around the next corner? is so bright and milky white, shining down upon the ground. He's so bright, milky white, shining down upon the ground. Everyone look at the moon. Everyone see the moon. The moon is bright, it's milky white. Everyone look at the moon. Hup! I caused that. Oh, I feel sick. Bedtime.